The early internet had no rules, no verification, no identity checks, no way to know who was really on the other side of the screen. Craigslist was the Wild West, and for most people, it was just a place to find cheap furniture or a room to rent. But for others, it was a hunting ground. What you're about to hear are three true accounts, shared anonymously by people who agreed to meet a stranger from Craigslist. All three walked into something they never saw coming, and not all of them were sure they'd walk back out. These are their stories. Our first narrator asked us to keep her anonymous. She said, and I'm quoting, "I'll choose to be anonymous with this because it's pretty embarrassing. And putting my name out there tied to this story is probably a horrible idea." That last part alone should tell you something about what she went through. It was 2009. She was 22. She needed money fast. She found a babysitting gig on Craigslist, $20 an hour, suburban address. The ad mentioned references. It looked completely legitimate. She messaged the poster, got a reply within the hour. The woman on the other end called herself Mrs. Ellis. Friendly voice, said she had twin boys 5 years old, needed someone for Friday night. Her and her husband had a work event. They did a quick phone interview. It felt normal. Mrs. Ellis gave her the address and told her to arrive by 7. She wrote it down, didn't think twice. She drove to a quiet cul-de-sac. Nice house. Minivan in the driveway. Everything looked exactly like it should. Mrs. Ellis answered the door. Mid-40s, pleasant smile, handed over a set of house keys before she'd even stepped inside. The boys were already asleep, she said. There was food in the fridge. She'd be back by midnight. She left. And our narrator was alone in a stranger's house. The first hour was fine. She watched TV, ate some of the food from the fridge, checked on the boys, both asleep, exactly where Mrs. Ellis said they'd be. Then midnight came and went. No Mrs. Ellis. She texted, no reply, called, straight to voicemail. She told herself it was nothing. Traffic, a long night, adults run late. Then she heard footsteps. Upstairs. Heavy, slow. Not the sound of a 5-year-old getting up for water. She froze on the couch and listened. The footsteps stopped, then started again, moving toward the stairs. She got up and looked for a phone charger in the kitchen drawer. Hers was dying and she needed to call someone. What she found instead stopped her cold. Zip ties, a roll of duct tape, a rag that smelled like chemicals. She didn't finish searching the drawer. She barricaded herself behind the couch and dialed 911. She was still on the phone with the operator when the back door came open. A man in a ski mask. He didn't ask for money. He didn't say anything at first. He just moved toward her. She threw a lamp, caught him across the shoulder, bought herself 3 seconds. That was enough. She hit the front window, not the door, the window dead, and screamed as loud as she could into the night. Neighbors heard her. Lights came on. The man disappeared back into the house. When police arrived and searched the property, the boys were never there. There were no children. The family photos on the walls were stock images, still in their frames from the store. Mrs. Ellis was a stolen identity. The house had been rented 2 weeks earlier in cash. By morning it was empty. She said the thing that haunts her most isn't the man in the mask. It's the drawer, the zip ties, the tape, the rag. Someone put those there before she arrived. Someone who knew she was coming. Someone who had a plan. She was never supposed to leave that house the way she came in. She doesn't use Craigslist anymore. She said she doesn't use it even for furniture. And every time she drives past a quiet cul-de-sac at night, she thinks about that porch light, the one that was flickering when she walked up, like it was trying to warn her. But that was just the first one. Our next narrator is a man. He thought he'd found the deal of his life, a room for $400 a month in Seattle. He had no idea who he was moving in with. This narrator is a man. He asked us not to use his name or the specific neighborhood in Seattle where this happened. He said he still lives nearby and doesn't want to take any chances. That tells you everything you need to know about how this ended. It was 2012. He was 28, single, relocating for work. Craigslist room for rent, $400 a month, all utilities included. The listing said, laid-back couple, no drama. He should have kept scrolling. He met the couple in person before signing anything. That was the smart thing he did. They seemed great, Tom and Lisa. Early 30s, friendly, well-spoken. The apartment was clean, bright, normal. He signed the lease the same day. First week was fine. They shared dinners, laughed at the same shows. He thought he'd gotten lucky. Then he noticed Lisa. The way she watched him when she thought he wasn't looking. Not romantic. Something else. Something that felt more like study. Small things started happening. His toiletries moved between visits to the bathroom. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. A book he'd left on his nightstand was on the shelf. His laptop was angled differently than how he'd left it. He told himself he was being paranoid. New place, new people, adjustment period. He wasn't being paranoid. He found the first camera on a Tuesday. It was in the bathroom vent, small, positioned with a direct angle toward the shower. He didn't touch it. He went to his bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of his bed trying to think clearly. Then he looked at his closet door. It was slightly open. He always kept it closed. Inside, pinned to the back of the door with thumbtacks, photographs of him, asleep, taken from the doorway of his own room. There were 11 of them. He confronted Tom that night. He expected denial, anger, an excuse. Instead, Tom sat down, calmly, and said something that made his blood run cold. "We collect lives," he said. "We've been doing it for years. You're not the first." He asked what happened to the others. Tom smiled and didn't answer. He went back to his room, pushed his dresser against the door, and spent the night with his phone in his hand. He knew they had a key, 3 in the morning. He heard them trying the door, then forcing it. The dresser bought him maybe 40 seconds. He grabbed a baseball bat he'd had the foresight to put under his bed that evening. When Tom got through the door, he swung. He didn't stop to check how bad it was. He ran, out the front door, down 3 flights of stairs, into the street, and kept running until he saw a gas station with lights on. Police found the apartment. The wall they found in the spare room, the one that had always been locked, had photographs of multiple people, names written underneath, dates. 2 of those names matched missing persons reports. Tom and Lisa were arrested. It came out later that they'd done this before. Different cities, different Craigslist listings. Always the same approach. Always a room that seemed too good to pass up. He moved states within the week. He said he drove the entire way without stopping. He said the thing that stays with him is the photographs. 11 pictures of him sleeping, taken over 11 different nights. Meaning for 11 nights before he found them, someone had been standing in his doorway watching him sleep, and he never once woke up. He said he replays that Craigslist listing in his head sometimes. Laid-back couple, no drama. Cheap rent, he told us. Priceless fear. One more. Our final narrator is a woman, 35. She was selling a car. She thought the worst thing that could happen was getting lowballed. She asked us not to use her name or location. She said it took her 2 years before she could talk about this at all, and she's only doing it now because she wants other women to know what to look for. She was 35, 2015, selling her 2005 Honda on Craigslist, $3,000 or best offer. The first message she got back seemed perfect. Cash buyer, available immediately, asked if a test drive was okay. She said yes. She chose a Walmart parking lot. Public, busy. She'd read the safety tips. The buyer showed up on time, polite, went by Carlos. The test drive lasted about 10 minutes. Normal. He asked standard questions about the mileage, the AC, whether it had been in any accidents. He said he wanted it. They walked back toward her car to grab the title. That's when the van pulled up. Two men got out of a white van. They moved fast, coordinated like they'd done it before. One grabbed her from behind. The other was already at her car. Carlos wasn't a buyer. Carlos was the setup. They zip-tied her wrists and pushed her into the back of the van. She said later she kept thinking about the Walmart, how full it was, how many people were 20 feet away and had no idea. They drove for what felt like hours. She didn't cry. She told herself crying would cost her energy she needed for something else. She focused on her hands. The zip tie was tight, but her wrists were small. She worked at it slowly, carefully, so nobody would notice the movement. At some point, they stopped at what sounded like a gas station. The driver got out. She had maybe 90 seconds. She'd worked one hand loose. She had a pen in her jacket pocket. She'd put it there that morning without thinking about it. When the driver came back and opened the door, she was ready. She didn't hesitate. The driver couldn't continue driving. The van rolled to the shoulder and stopped. She ran into the tree line and didn't stop. She hid in a ditch when she heard them behind her, and she stayed completely still for what she believes was close to 2 hours. When it was silent and starting to get light, she walked to the road. The first vehicle that passed was a truck driver who called the police from his cab. She didn't move from the passenger seat until she saw the officers. The investigation that followed connected the group to multiple victims across 3 states. She was not their first, but because of what she did in that van, she was the one who got away and gave law enforcement what they needed. 10 people were eventually charged. Her car was recovered, totaled. She said she didn't care about the car. She said the thing that changed most about her wasn't fear. It was the pin. She thinks about it every day, how she put it in her pocket that morning without thinking, how something that ordinary, that small, that forgettable, made the difference between her story ending here and not ending at all. She told us, "I sold my car and almost sold my life. The only difference between me and the women who didn't make it home is a $2 ballpoint pen." 3 people, 3 different years, 3 different kinds of trust. Trust in a babysitting ad, trust in a room for rent, trust in a cash buyer. None of them did anything most of us wouldn't have done. None of them were reckless. None of them were naive in any unusual way. They just encountered people who had already decided what was going to happen, and they found a way to make sure it didn't. The early internet didn't create monsters. It just gave them a place to post ads and an audience who trusted the listings. If you've had an experience on Craigslist or anywhere online that still doesn't sit right with you, tell us in the comments. We read every single one. And if something about a listing ever feels wrong, close the tab. No deal is worth what these 3 people went through to learn that lesson. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.